What is the most unexpected damage you've ever done as a PC or DM? Part 2. Friend cast Shape Stone in a passage floor, so all the charging goblins fell into a cavern below. Nearly 50 in a 40 by 50 area. I cast a level 5 fireball on them. Ah, sweet XP. Happened less than an hour ago. We're going through this citadel full of ornate draconian coffins, and we stumble upon ghosts guarding a door. Well, ignoring the epitaph saying one of them killed over 1,000 people in their lifetime, I decided to attack the stubborn guard. I crit and do 60-ish damage. That damn thing didn't even flinch. Their turn comes up and almost knocks me out immediately with 78 damage. TLDR, I fucked up. I had a group of bounty hunters come after my party one time. They failed their perception check, so the hunters got a surprise round. Well, the hunter's bard cast Phantasmal Killer on our party's barbarian, with the intent of locking him out of running after the spellcasters. He failed the save, and I rolled damage. Out of 4d10 damage, I rolled 39 total damage. One round later was the first time the barbarian went down in our campaign. Group is liberating a bunch of orphans from an Oliver Twist-esque situation with an extremely abusive gnome that taught them to steal. After beating the crap out of the gnome, he flees and convinces the orphans to attack the party. Tim, the cleric, gets knifed by one of them in the side. The group manages to persuade them to stand down with a combination of spells, persuasion, and generally awesome roleplay. Tim goes to hug the orphans. One of them accidentally drives the knife deeper into the cleric's side. Roll damage. It just so happened that he was sitting at 1 hit point after the fight. And thus Tim was downed by orphan hugs. The rest of the party revived him, but the event was still one of the most memorable in our group's adventures. Not me, but a player in my game. They were fighting a dragon, and the fighter, who was using the Unearthed Arcana Samurai subclass, had a Dragon Slayer greatsword he got nearly a year prior and I had completely forgotten about. Dragon Slayer weapons deal 3d6 extra damage when hitting a dragon. Sorcerer casts haste on this fighter. Fighter uses Action Surge, each attack having advantage because of the samurai's ability. All 9 attacks hit, 2 of them crit, 4 of them were Great Weapons Master attacks. 55d6 plus 94 damage. I'm sure they were expecting it, but I was not. Currently trying to figure out a way to take away the Dragon Slayer. I once had a player who was a Duskblade, 3.5e, do somewhere around 500 damage in a single attack thanks to buffs, magic items, arcane channeling, some type of multi-shot ray spell channeled into the weapon, and a critical hit. I don't remember the exact numbers involved. I think I was too stunned because I had never seen damage that high yet, and that was only one of his 4 available attacks that round. I want to say the spell he used was Scorching Ray, but I can't remember. I do remember he should have done 10 more damage than he did because the boss had DR10 Fire. He was level 20, by the way. I am a relatively new DM with new players, so I've been letting them do what they want for the most part, which includes knocking a goblin unconscious, kidnapping him, and conscripting him to fight for them. They have to keep track of him and pass some dice rolls to keep him from escaping, but he's still with them for now. Anyway, the party was facing a cockatrice and had whittled him down a bit. Cleric blesses the goblin, and Druid tells Goblin to attack with the force of 1,000 suns, or something like that. I roll a nat 20 for the goblin, 6 on the d6 for his scimitar, times 2 for crit, plus a 4 on the d4 for the cleric's blessing. Needless to say, I let them know he beheaded the cockatrice. One of the highest amounts of damage I have ever taken was from a high 5 with an earth elemental. The party encountered elementals and circumvented actual fighting thanks to our Genasi who spoke Primordial. As we walked past them, my barbarian decided to offer a high 5 to the earth elemental. The DM decided that the earth elemental had a loose understanding of the theory behind a high 5. It knew I was being friendly, but was not particularly good at executing one. My barbarian was damaged as though getting hit by a slam attack. It was a crit, with almost maximum damage. Also, my character, Barbarian, was not raging, so I didn't take half damage like I normally would in battle. On the one hand, you have a dragon coming in for another dive bombing run against the party. It's about 1,000 feet up and wheeling for another pass. Our barbarian can see the wisps of electricity crackling around its mouth, signifying that, yes, it has recharged its breath weapon, and it's found a pretty large rock along the way that it's holding in its talons. On the other hand, the wizard is about to cast Wall of Force. Wall of Force has a range of 120 feet and can be cast floating in midair. It is made up of 10 10x10 panels, which is quite an area and is completely immune to all damage and totally unmovable. Dragons are not an unstoppable force, as it turns out. They are in fact very stoppable, especially when going from full speed dive to all stop instantaneously. I was running a mid-level game in 3.5 edition. Party gets attacked by some Fae. One of them has Chain Lightning as a spell-like ability. The party tank and their blender are in the effect range, so I describe this living beauty fill itself with rage and unleash a bolt of fury. I got 12 damage off 11d6. The tank looks up and mocks the Fae afterwards. I stopped using them dice for damage after that. I was DMing and threw a huge Storm Elemental, CR8, from MM3 at my party. They were around level 10 to 11 at the time. I didn't do my reading beforehand, so when he hit them with 16d6 electricity damage, 8d6 sonic damage, and a follow-up of 8d4 electricity damage all in one round, save DC's 24, I was appalled by the damage total. Killed 2 party members before they could act. I rolled the encounter back and downgraded him a size. He was still a decent threat. I later found out that Storm Elementals are considered to be very poorly CR'd, and that's when I learned to double-check monsters and not rely solely on CR. A while back, a level 8-ish paladin of mine was in a party fighting a group of ogres led by an evil fighter/cleric that was supposed to be the boss of the fight. I started the fight a ways off, mounted on my paladin steed, and the ogres charged my party while I circled around for an opening. In the second round, I had a clear line to charge the cleric, so I do. I'd never actually managed a mounted charge with a lance before, and so I decided to go all in with max power attack and smite on the charge. I roll to attack. Nat 20, and I confirm the crit. Lances do triple on a crit, and also double damage when charging, so my damage got a ×6 modifier to it. Did something like 140 damage, which caused my DM to just sit there with a look of shock on his face as he gets out. Well, that was supposed to be the big bad for today, as he removed the piece from the board. The ogres went down easy at that point. I forget the stats of Orc Veteran and the 2 Orc Grunt guys that followed him, but I had set an encounter just meant to try and bait some roleplay out of our cleric who was in a war against orcs. I think I fucked up, made an accidental new rule, and had the veteran benefit from his own war cry on his next turn, and both of his attacks were given advantage, and each attack was a 20. And I think he dropped the cleric unconscious, and the class got to learn about death saving throws. I want to say they were level 5 for that encounter. And 2 levels before that, I had them fight a gelatinous cube, and I didn't 100% read through its abilities to a T. The sorceress was pulled out of the cube before I realized its next turn would have gone over her max hit points and completely dissolved her. My players aren't total beginners, but far from veterans, just like their DM, and I think they thought I was planning on them almost dying. Turns out my dice just don't like them as much as I do. I play an Aasimar Paladin Bard with a homebrewed dragon-slaying Holy Avenger sword. DM thought Hazeron was OP, so made it 2d10 against dragons and fiends. We were fighting a dragon, and I pop Radiant Soul and go after the dragon. The dragon and I seem to spend most of the fight waving at each other but not actually hitting. Until the last moment, when, while flying into the air as the dragon is looking to leave, I land a crit. Dragon Slaying Greatsword. 46 plus 4d10 plus 2, smite level 4, 10d8, radiant soul 10, strength 4. I ended up doing 105 damage in 1 hit. The DM had decided that the dragon would run away at 70 hit points and become a reoccurring villain who would taunt us later on. No one expected me to just cut its head off. As DM, I had my players fight an anti-druid and his comrade, an old black dragon. After the players finished off the anti-druid, they was beat up as shit, and the dragon had taken less than 10% of its HP in damage. So, out of desperation, the sorcerer points his Rod of Wonder at the dragon, causing leaves and branches to start growing out of it. The party druid goes for a crazy idea and asks if he can use a spell that makes small vegetation turn to thick jungle-like vines and branches. And since the plants grew from every part of his body, the dragon got completely entangled and unable to move, causing it to become helpless. Bad rolls. Since the dragon was helpless, the large-sized barbarian buffed up like crazy, coup de grace it, dealing well over 60 damage, forcing the almost 300 hit point dragon to die instantly since it could in no way succeed a DC 70 plus fort save. I was quite surprised. Second game with my current group. A bunch of newbies who had just made their first character were playing. Fight against a small zombie horde. Semi-tough, but shouldn't have been much of a problem. Ended up hitting one of the newbies with 3 nat 20s in a row, which would have insta-killed him. I didn't want to kill his character off this early in the game, especially since building a character for the first time is kind of a pain in the ass. So I had his character get possessed by a demon who brought his body back to life. So the campaign for the past year or so has just been them trying to find a cure for his possession. For my birthday that year, the group had a t-shirt made referencing the event. I've become somewhat notorious for rolling stupidly high as a DM and borderline uselessly low as a player. Hello, my buttery little muffin chunks. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're new, please say hello in the comments section. We go through it all and respond where we can. If you have a great story of your own or some feedback for us here at the channel, that seems like a great place to get our attention. Or so I have read. Now then, in case you're just tuning in for the first time, we recently found out that the dude responsible for making these vids happen regularly and building this savory community of fresh, delicious pastries has never actually played D&D. The horror! The horror! So, to celebrate 50k subs when we get there, Papa's playing some fucking D&D live on this channel. I haven't played in like a month. I'm going fucking crazy, so please help me play D&D again sooner than later, and you can do that and show us some love with but a singular click of your awesome RGB gaming mouse that you mostly use to scroll through hentai. As always, please sub for nat 20s, and may your favorite body pillow come to life one day. Or not. Your call. Thanks again. See you next time.